Hi, I'm Debra, business owner and mom to Gen Z kids on a mission to make sure they get hired and become financially independent as soon as possible. If you're a parent wanting to get your kids hired or a new job seeker desperately trying to get hired, this show is for you, and I am so glad you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So every now and then I like to weave in some sort of current event. And so today I want to talk about an article in Business Insider, and I will link it in the show notes for you for your reference as well. And the title of the article is Gen Zers Can Be Weird in Interviews. A recruiter explained how it sets them back. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to unpack a little bit about what she's referring to here and elaborate on what to do, what not to do. So first, I just want to say that getting to the interview point is so difficult. So if you get to that point, you want to kill it during that interview. That is your time to shine. And it seems that that is not the case across the board for new job seekers. And a lot of it is lack of experience. They just don't know. So let me go through this article and detail some issues. So she's referring to mistakes that are setting them back in the interviews. So one of the things she points out right out of the gate is, and this is a frightening statement, there aren't as many jobs open as there are people who are graduating. Yikes. I mean, for me as a parent that has skin in this game with kids in college that are going to be graduating, that's frightening. I absolutely want to make sure that my kids get hired. Of course. And my hope is that they're not going to make these mistakes that a lot of their friends and colleagues are making. But just knowing that there's less jobs than there are graduating seniors, graduating new job seekers is kind of like a game of, musical chairs. And you got to be the last one standing in order to land that job. So one of the things she points out is, and it's funny, I haven't heard this before, but she refers to this generation, Gen Z, as Zoomers. So instead of boomers, they're called Zoomers. So she said Zoomers can have particularly high demands of their workplaces, which is absolutely hindering them. So what she means by that is they constantly are referring to a philosophy of work to live rather than the other way around, and work-life balance and flexibility and all these things that are so important to them. And while there's nothing wrong with having those goals, bringing up these preferences in the first interview is a red flag. Bottom line, the recruiter references is, don't they understand they have to pay their dues? Yes, there's that. And also remember, in this interview, it is your time to shine and your time to let that potential employer know that you working for them is going to make their life so much easier. And here's why. It's not about you. It's about them in that interview. Remember, you're trying to convince them to hire you. They are the ones taking the risk. So she also points out, and this is something I feel so passionate about and I've discussed over and over again with new job seekers. She references that they try to just wing it in the interview without doing any research on the company or the person that they're meeting. So even if they're provided with the link of who they're meeting with, in the actual interview, they show up completely blind and have no idea about anything about the company or the person they're interviewing with. And she refers to it as so insulting. Now, guys, this is an easy one. And I know that it's not happening because A, they don't know how to do it, and B, they're lazy. They just think, oh, I got this interview, I'm going to go in and wing it. No, you're not. This is when you are going to put your best foot forward. So with regards to research, you should know the name of the person that you're interviewing with, in theory. That person you need to make sure you connect with on LinkedIn, that you scrub their profile and know everything about them. I mean, where they went to school, what their role is in the company, any special projects they've worked on, who they are connected with that you might be connected with, where they worked before this and what their role was. You need to know everything about them because those things could be used as potential talking points. People love to hear about themselves. So if you bring up, hey, I noticed you're alum from blah, 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 or those are things that are going to really resonate with recruiters. It's casual conversation that's going to make you look prepared. The other thing you need to do is know everything you possibly can about the company that you're interviewing with. And this is not hard. you need to Google search that company. When you do a Google search of that company, press releases are going to pop up. You're going to see things that that company is doing in the news, companies they might be partnering with, city things they might be partnering with, philanthropy they might be involved in. I mean, so much is going to come up in a Google search of a company that I encourage you to go all the way down to page 3 of a Google search and really take a look at what is showing up. Because if there are projects that they're working on, if they have brought in a new CEO that is pivotal in some capacity, these are things that you need to know about, because again, they're talking points. And like, let me give you an example. Several years ago, UPS brought in a female CEO, and they recruited her out of retirement. She retired from the Home Depot position. She was a Home Depot CFO. She retired. I think she was in retirement for a few years. UPS took her out of retirement and brought her on as their CEO. That's a cool talking point. Like, hey, I noticed you guys brought in a female CEO. That's really exciting. Her background from Home Depot must be impressive. Whatever. The point is you know what's going on with the company. These are things that you need to make yourself familiar with. End of story. Because like I said, they're going to be talking points, especially because at the end of the interview, they're likely going to say, do you have any questions for us? And this would be a phenomenal opportunity. Instead of asking, how much paid time off do I get? Because that's definitely not advisable. But instead of that, saying something like, I noticed that you guys were partnering with the city of San Diego on your latest restoration project. That sounds so interesting, and I'd love to contribute to more of that. Things like this, it's going to make you look relevant. It's going to make them think you know what you're talking about. And again, you're making the interview about how special they are and how you can help them. So that is one of the things that I don't think is hard to do. I know very few people do it, and it absolutely should be happening. Another thing she talks about is taking video interviews from your car without pulling over. I don't understand this. Why wouldn't you schedule the interview when you have time that you could do it from your car. That's fine. Nobody is going to ever object to that. But you need to be pulled over in a parking lot with completely engaged video on, looking professional, the whole deal. Another example she uses is people taking their video interviews from in bed or lying down on the sofa with the laptop on their stomach and dirty laundry everywhere in the room behind them. Okay. Now, to any adult listening, I know you're thinking, how is this actually a thing? But it is. And I do feel like some of it is residual leftover from what these kids did during COVID, because they very much did not turn their camera on during all their Zoom class sessions. And I mean, my kids were guilty of it too. The room would be dark. They'd be in their pajamas. It's a nightmare. And I just worry that that hasn't ended and they're thinking that that's somehow still acceptable in a professional interview. It's not. It's a kiss of death. Another one was in bed watching TV during the interview with them. And she actually mentions, this recruiter says, we just thought it was the strangest thing ever. We were inconveniencing her during a nap. My God, this is not what you want a potential employer to think of you. She said she's had people answer FaceTime interviews and they're wearing a bathrobe with wet hair twisted up in a towel. Guys, don't schedule an interview until you are absolutely 100% ready, physically ready. Chewing gum throughout the interview, unacceptable. She also mentions, and this one really strikes the chord, having a parent follow up after an interview or bringing your parent to the interview themselves or having the parent in on the video. Absolutely not. Bottom line is, people are just way too comfortable. And that's unacceptable in a professional environment. It just is. So to bridge this disconnect, here's the bottom line. You need to start doing your research on the company. You need to tailor your resumes and applications to specific roles rather than sending the same version to multiple job postings. I have been saying this for months. This is so critical. You cannot have one generic resume. It will get you nowhere. Interview attire is also very important. Candidates should all have a selection of job-appropriate outfits. This does not have to be expensive, but you should show that you take yourself seriously. Absolutely. I am a big advocate of a crisp white button-down shirt. This works for men and women. You don't even have to have a suit and tie, but if you have a crisp white shirt that is buttoned into some sort of pants, not jeans, but pants. And in theory, they wouldn't even see your pants in a video interview because you could have like chest up. But a crisp white shirt just looks professional. It just does. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but you cannot show up in a t-shirt. You cannot show up in a polo shirt. It's not dressy enough unless the culture of that company is so casual. And even then, I say tread lightly. My son recently told me, Mom, everyone wears beanies to interviews in Utah. No, they don't. We argued about this. And of course, because I'm his mom, he thinks I don't know what I'm talking about. You cannot wear a beanie to an interview. He goes, well, it's cold in Utah. I don't care. Wear a coat, take it off. You cannot wear a beanie to an interview. It looks unprofessional. Period. Now, I understand that some things are more socially acceptable in different geographical areas. I don't care. I don't want anyone showing up to an interview with a beanie. It looks unprofessional. Not to mention when you take it off, your hair looks terrible. The other thing she mentioned, and I have done a show on this, and if you haven't heard it, you should go back and listen. Cleaning up your social media is critical. It's the first thing she goes to look for. Wow. And guys, the last thing she states is so profound, and I agree wholeheartedly, and it's so true. Interviews are auditions, and you always want to put your best foot forward. You want to be the first there, best dressed. You just do. You want to look the best, be the best prepared so that you can land that job. She finds that candidates are just more and more clueless today about what it takes. None of this is rocket science. This is just knowing what to do and how to do it. It's not hard, but it takes effort. And if you get to the point where you get an interview, it is absolutely in your best interest to make sure you do everything you can to sell yourself during that time so that you can land the job. Okay, guys, I hope you have found this episode helpful. Again, I will link this article in the show notes just so if you want to reference it, you certainly can. But all of this information is so important. If you know anyone in this season of life, please forward this episode to them, as I hope it will be helpful. And it really helps me spread the news about my show. Anyway, in the meantime, I hope all is well, and I will talk to you next week. Take care.